The lake house my grandson bragged about to his friends. The Tesla he posed with on Instagram. The corner office he claimed he earned through sheer brilliance. None of it was his, and the most dangerous thing I ever did was let him believe it was. There's a particular kind of silence that settles over a man when he's been wounded by someone he loves. It's not the silence of weakness. It's not the silence of surrender. It's the silence of a decision being made in the deepest chambers of the heart, where logic and emotion collide and something irrevocable is born. My name is Harold McPherson. I'm 67 years old. I built my fortune in commercial real estate across Ontario and British Columbia over 4 decades, starting with a single duplex in Hamilton that I renovated with my own hands while working night shifts at the steel mill. Today, my holdings are worth somewhere north of $40 million, spread across numbered companies and trusts that even my accountant needs a flowchart to track. But to my family, I'm just Grandpa Harold, the quiet widower who lives in a modest bungalow in Burlington, the old man who drives a 10-year-old Honda Accord and clips coupons from the flyers, the retired nobody who shows up to family dinners with a bottle of cheap wine and leaves early because he gets tired. That's exactly how I wanted it, until I didn't. Let me tell you about my grandson, Marcus. Marcus is 34 years old. He has an MBA from Schulich, a wardrobe that costs more than most people's cars, and an opinion about everything that he delivers with the confidence of someone who has never truly failed at anything. He's handsome, articulate, and absolutely convinced that he's the smartest person in any room he enters. He's also been living in a condo I own, driving a car registered to one of my companies, and collecting a salary from a property management firm that wouldn't exist without the contracts I quietly steered their way. Marcus doesn't know any of this. His mother, my daughter Catherine, knows some of it. She's been the intermediary for years, helping me help Marcus without him ever knowing the invisible hand that guided his success. She thought she was doing the right thing. So did I. We were both wrong. The dinner that changed everything happened on Thanksgiving weekend at Marcus's condo in downtown Toronto. It's a beautiful unit on the 43rd floor of a building in the financial district. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Italian marble countertops. A view of the CN Tower that makes visitors gasp. Marcus bought it 3 years ago. At least, that's what he tells everyone. What actually happened is that I purchased the unit through a numbered company, then arranged for Marcus to buy it from that company at 40% below market value, financed through a private mortgage with terms so favorable they would make a bank manager weep. Marcus thinks he got a great deal because he's a skilled negotiator. The truth is, I handed him a gift worth nearly $500,000 and let him believe he'd earned it. That Thanksgiving, Marcus had invited the whole family, Catherine and her husband David, my younger daughter, Patricia, who flew in from Calgary with her wife Simone, and me, the widowed patriarch, arriving with my discount wine and my comfortable shoes. Marcus's wife, Jennifer, greeted me at the door with the kind of smile you give to a service worker you're trying to be polite to. Jennifer comes from money, old Toronto money. Her father was a partner at one of the big Bay Street law firms, and she grew up in Rosedale with a tennis court in the backyard and summers in Muskoka. Jennifer has never been rude to me, exactly, but she has a way of looking through me, as if I'm not quite substantial enough to register on her radar. When I speak, she waits politely until I finish, then continues whatever conversation she was actually interested in. That night, Jennifer had invited her parents as well, Gerald and Maureen Chen. Gerald is 72, still sits on 3 corporate boards, and drives a Bentley. He walked into Marcus's condo that evening like he owned it, which I found privately amusing since I literally did own it. The evening started pleasantly enough. Marcus played bartender, making craft cocktails, with the kind of elaborate theatricality that suggested he'd watched too many YouTube videos. Catherine tried to include me in conversations. Patricia caught my eye across the room a few times with a look that said she saw through the performance even if she didn't know the full story. We sat down to dinner at a long marble table that seated 12. Jennifer had hired a private chef for the occasion, which meant that for the first time in family history, no one had to eat my daughter's consistently overcooked turkey. The conversation turned, as it often does in that tax bracket, to money. Gerald was holding court about some investment strategy. Marcus was nodding along with the eager attentiveness of a student seeking approval from a professor. And then Gerald turned to me. "So, Harold," he said, in that tone successful men use when they're about to make small talk with someone they consider beneath them. "Marcus tells me you're retired. What did you do before?" "I worked in property management," I said, "for many years." This was technically true. I managed properties, my own properties, hundreds of them. Gerald nodded with polite disinterest. "Ah, well, honest work, I suppose. Though I imagine the pension isn't much to write home about these days." "It's enough," I said. "I manage." Jennifer reached over and patted my hand. "You should let Marcus help you with your finances, Harold. He's absolutely brilliant with money. He could probably find ways to stretch your retirement savings further." I looked at my grandson, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but only slightly. "Thanks, Grandma," Marcus said to Jennifer, using the family nickname that had always struck me as odd since Jennifer was only 31. But Grandpa's pretty set in his ways. You know how older people are with money. They don't trust anything they can't hold in their hands. "That's the generation," Gerald agreed. "No offense, Harold, but your cohort missed the boat on wealth creation. The real money in this country was made by people who understood leverage, risk, equity, growth. You salt-of-the-earth types who worked steady jobs and put money in savings accounts. Well, you did what you could with what you knew." I felt Catherine stiffen beside me. Patricia set down her wine glass with a little too much force. "Dad built a good life for us," Catherine said carefully. "We never wanted for anything." "Oh, of course," Maureen said, in a tone that managed to be both agreeable and condescending. "There's nothing wrong with a simple life. Not everyone is meant to achieve great things financially. Someone has to work the regular jobs, don't they?" "Speaking of achieving things," Marcus said, smoothly redirecting the conversation toward his favorite subject, himself. "Did I tell everyone about the new contract we landed? 15 properties in the GTA. Our biggest deal yet? I knew about this contract. I knew about it because I had arranged for the property owners, who happened to be clients of mine, to consider Marcus's firm for their management needs. I had done this quietly, through intermediaries, ensuring that Marcus would never know the opportunity came from me." "That's wonderful, dear," Jennifer said. "See, this is what happens when you have the right education and the right connections. Success finds you." "It's not just connections," Marcus said, with false modesty. "It's about seeing opportunities others miss, about having the vision to—" "Your grandfather worked very hard his whole life," Catherine interrupted. "He provided for this family. He put me through university. He deserves more respect than—" "Mom, relax," Marcus said, laughing. "Nobody's disrespecting Grandpa. We're just having a conversation about success. Grandpa knows we love him. Right, Grandpa?" He turned to me with the patronizing smile you give to a child or a family pet, and something in me cracked, but I said nothing. I smiled and nodded, and cut my turkey into smaller and smaller pieces, while the conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. After dinner, we moved to the living room for dessert. Gerald was on his third scotch and feeling expansive. He stood by the window, gesturing at the glittering city below. "This view," he said. "This is what success looks like. When I was your grandfather's age, Harold, I could stand on my balcony and see everything I'd built. Every deal, every victory, all of it, stretching out before me. The view from my place isn't quite as impressive," I said mildly. "No, I imagine not," Gerald chuckled. "Burlington, isn't it? Nice enough town, good place to retire, affordable." "The house is paid off," I said. "That helps." Jennifer leaned toward Maureen. "We've offered to help Harold find a nicer place, a retirement community, maybe. Somewhere with activities, where he could make friends his own age. But he's so stubborn." "I like my house," I said. "My wife and I built a life there." "Of course you do," Maureen said. "But at some point, you have to think practically. Those old bungalows, there's so much work to maintain. And the heating bills in winter, I manage," I said again. Marcus dropped onto the couch beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. It was expensive, I knew, because I'd seen the bottle in his bathroom during a previous visit. $300 for something that smelled like cedar and arrogance. "Grandpa," he said, in a tone of confidential intimacy that immediately put me on guard. "Can I be honest with you? When have you ever been dishonest?" He laughed, missing or ignoring the edge in my question. "I worry about you sometimes, living alone, on a fixed income. Jennifer and I have been talking, and we think maybe we should help you out a little. Nothing major. Just a little monthly stipend to make things easier." I looked at him. My grandson, the boy I had bounced on my knee, taught to skate, taken to Blue Jays games. The young man I had quietly supported through every phase of his life, removing obstacles he never saw, opening doors he walked through without ever knowing someone had unlocked them first. "A stipend," I repeated. "Just a few hundred a month. Consider it a gift from your grandson who's doing well." He patted my shoulder. "You helped raise me, Grandpa. Let me give back a little." From across the room, Gerald raised his glass. "That's generous of you, Marcus. Not everyone in your generation understands the importance of taking care of elderly relatives. My own father lived his last years in comfort because I provided for him. It's the natural order of things. The successful support those who couldn't quite make it on their own." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Something very, very cold. "That's very kind," I said. "Let me think about it." The evening continued. More drinks, more stories of Gerald's various triumphs, more subtle and not so subtle implications that I was a quaint relic from a simpler, poorer time. It was nearly 11 when the final blow landed. We were discussing Christmas plans. Marcus suggested the family rent a chalet in Whistler for the holidays. Jennifer immediately began calculating costs, noting which flights would be cheapest, which accommodation options offered the best value. "Of course, we'd cover Grandpa's share," Marcus said. No way he could afford Whistler on his budget. "Actually," Patricia said, an edge in her voice, "I think Dad might surprise you." "Patty, come on," Marcus said. "I love Grandpa, but let's be realistic. What's his net worth? 100,000, maybe, if he's been careful? A house in Burlington that's probably worth 600-700? Versus what I've built in just 10 years? He gestured expansively at the condo, at the view, at everything around him. I don't say this to brag. It's just facts. Some people create wealth. Other people, through no fault of their own, they just exist within their means. "Marcus," Catherine said sharply. "What?" "I'm not insulting him. I'm just being honest. Grandpa, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you're secretly a millionaire and you've been fooling us all this time." He laughed. Jennifer laughed. Gerald and Maureen exchanged amused glances. I looked at my grandson's face, so confident, so certain of his own superiority. I looked at the condo I owned, the view I paid for, the life I had constructed around him like a gift he never had the grace to recognize. And I smiled. "You're right," I said quietly. "I could never afford any of this." Marcus nodded, satisfied. "See? No shame in it, Grandpa. You did your best. That's all anyone can ask." I stood up, suddenly tired. Not physically, just tired of carrying a weight I had volunteered for and could not set down without watching it crush the person I'd been trying to protect. "I should go," I said. "Long drive back to Burlington." Catherine stood up too, concern on her face. "Dad, I'll walk you out." In the elevator, she was quiet until we reached the parking garage. Then she turned to me. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know they would." "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you know he thought so little of me?" Her silence was answer enough. "I need to think," I said. "I'll call you tomorrow." I drove home through the dark streets, past the towers I owned shares of, past the shopping plazas where my tenants ran their businesses, past the quiet subdivisions where families paid rent to my numbered companies without ever knowing my name. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. That would come later. What I felt was the strange, clarifying pain of a truth finally acknowledged. I had spent years giving my grandson everything while letting him believe he owed me nothing. I had loved him by lying to him. And in his ignorance, he had grown into someone who looked at his own grandfather and saw a failure. This was my fault. And now, it was mine to fix. The next morning, I sat in my home office, a room that Jennifer would have been shocked to see. Custom mahogany desk, 3 monitors for tracking my investments, a wall of filing cabinets containing 40 years of business records. I called my lawyer, Douglas Park, who has handled my affairs for 25 years. "Harold," he said, his voice carrying the wary tone of someone who knew that when I called early on a Saturday morning, something significant was happening. "What can I do for you?" "Douglas, I need you to pull all the files related to the Toronto Financial District condo, Unit 4307, and the mortgage documents, and the corporate structure we used for the purchase." "A pause. The one your grandson occupies?" "Yes. May I ask why?" "You may ask, but I'm not ready to explain yet." Another pause. "Douglas is a careful man. That's why I've kept him around for so long. I'll have everything to your email by Monday. I also need the records on the property management contracts we arranged through Northern Shield Holdings, the ones that went to Apex Property Services." "Your grandson's company." "His company, yes." "Harold, whatever you're planning." "I'm not planning anything yet. I'm just looking at my options. That's all." I spent the weekend reviewing documents. The condo purchase, structured through 1847392 Ontario Limited, with a mortgage held by my family trust at an interest rate of 1.8%. The contracts funneled to Marcus's company through my contacts, worth roughly $2 million in annual revenue. The Tesla, leased through another numbered company and provided to Marcus as a company vehicle for a firm that derived most of its business from my referrals. I made lists. I ran numbers. I mapped the invisible architecture of support I had constructed around my grandson's life. And then I began to consider what would happen if I removed it all. Monday morning, I called Catherine. "Dad, I'm so glad you called. I've been worried about what Marcus said." "Catherine, I need you to answer something honestly. Does Marcus know about any of it?" "Dad, does he know about the condo, the mortgage, the contracts?" A long silence. "No, he doesn't know. And you never told him. You asked me not to. You said you wanted him to build confidence, to feel like he'd earned his success." "I know what I said. I'm asking if you told him anyway." "No," her voice cracked. "I never told him. I kept your secret, Dad. Even when he bragged about things that were really yours, even when he looked down on you, I kept quiet because you asked me to." "Then he genuinely believes everything he has is the result of his own brilliance." "Yes, and he genuinely believes I'm a retired property manager living on a pension in Burlington." "Yes. Thank you for being honest." "Dad, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to teach my grandson something I should have taught him years ago." "What's that?" "That everything has a source, and every source has the right to stop flowing." I started small, not because I wanted to be gentle, but because I wanted Marcus to understand, step by step, exactly what was happening and why. The first call came on a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Douglas made it on my behalf to the leasing company that handled the Tesla. "Mr. McPherson has decided to terminate the vehicle lease early," Douglas explained. "The car should be collected from the current driver within 72 hours. The leasing company representative was confused. "But the lease is paid up through next year. Is there a problem with the vehicle?" "No problem. Mr. McPherson simply wishes to reallocate the asset." Marcus called Catherine that evening, bewildered. "The weirdest thing happened today. Someone from the leasing company showed up at my office and took my car. They said the lease was terminated by the owner, but I own the lease. I signed the paperwork myself." Catherine, who knew exactly what was happening, said nothing useful. "That's strange. Maybe you should check your paperwork." Marcus checked his paperwork. For the first time, he actually read the documents he had signed 3 years ago when I gave him that car. And for the first time, he noticed the name of the numbered company that actually held the lease. He was confused. But he wasn't worried yet. Why would he be? It was just a car. Just a strange administrative error that would surely be sorted out. It wasn't sorted out. The following week, Marcus received a letter from the mortgage holder on his condo. The letter informed him that the mortgage was being called in, payment in full within 90 days, or foreclosure proceedings would begin. Now he was worried. "This doesn't make sense," he told Catherine when she came over to look at the letter. I've never missed a payment. My credit is perfect. Why would they call the mortgage? Who holds the mortgage? Catherine asked, though she already knew. Marcus looked at the documents. He had never looked carefully before. Why would he? Everything had always worked so smoothly. It's some numbered company, he said slowly. 1847392, Ontario Limited. I don't know who that is. Maybe you should find out. Marcus hired a lawyer. The lawyer dug into the corporate records and traced 1847392 Ontario Limited, back through a maze of holding companies and trusts. I don't know how to tell you this, the lawyer said, but the ultimate beneficial owner of the company that holds your mortgage appears to be someone named Harold Macpherson. Marcus went very quiet. That's not possible, he said finally. That's my grandfather. He's a retired property manager. He lives in Burlington. He clips coupons. I'm just telling you what the records show. Marcus called me that night. It was the first time he had called me directly in months. Usually, our communication went through Catherine, brief messages relayed through the family chain. Grandpa, he said, and I could hear the strain in his voice, the confusion, the first stirrings of fear. I need to ask you something. Do you own a company called 1847392 Ontario Limited? That's an oddly specific question, Marcus. Why do you ask? Because someone is claiming that company owns the mortgage on my condo, and they're saying you're connected to it somehow. What would make them think that? Grandpa, please, just tell me. Is it true? I let the silence stretch. I wanted him to feel it. The weight of not knowing. The discomfort of uncertainty. Yes, I said finally. It's true. But how? You're retired. You live on a pension. You can't afford. Marcus, I think we should have a conversation. A proper conversation. In person. When? Tomorrow. Come to Burlington. I'll make lunch. He came. Of course he came. He pulled up in a rental car, since his Tesla was gone, and walked up the path to my little bungalow with the expression of someone entering unfamiliar territory. I met him at the door. Come in. Coffee's ready. He followed me to the kitchen, looking around as if seeing my home for the first time. And in a sense, he was. Before, he had seen what he expected to see. A modest house belonging to a modest man. Now, uncertainty had cracked his perception, and he was looking for clues. He didn't find many. I keep my office door closed. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had helped him with homework when he was 8 years old. The same table where his grandmother had served us apple pie every Sunday until the cancer took her 5 years ago. Grandpa, Marcus said, I need to understand what's happening. The car, the mortgage. Are you doing this? Yes. But why? I took a sip of my coffee. Do you remember Thanksgiving, Marcus? At your condo? He blinked, thrown by the change of subject. Of course. Do you remember what you said about me that night? I don't know what you mean. You told everyone that my net worth was maybe $100,000, if I'd been careful. You said I existed within my means while you created wealth. You offered me a monthly stipend, like I was a charity case. You looked at your own grandfather and saw a failure. Marcus's face had gone pale. Grandpa, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. That's exactly what you meant, because that's exactly what you believed. And you believed it because I let you believe it. Because I thought if I helped you quietly, invisibly, you would develop confidence without developing arrogance. I was wrong. Helped me? What do you mean, helped me? I stood up. Come with me. I want to show you something. I led him down the hallway to my office. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and watched his face as he took in the mahogany desk, the monitors, the filing cabinets, the framed letters from prime ministers and premiers thanking me for charitable contributions. This is my office, I said. This is where I manage my business interests, my actual business interests. Marcus walked in slowly, like a man in a dream. He stopped in front of a wall map of Ontario dotted with pins. Red pins for commercial properties, blue pins for residential, green pins for land holdings awaiting development. What is this? He whispered. This is what I've built over 40 years, starting with nothing, less than nothing, a duplex in Hamilton, and a job at the steel mill. These are all yours? They're held through various companies and trusts. But yes, they're mine. He turned to look at me, and I saw something I had never seen in his eyes before. True confusion. The ground beneath him was shifting, and he had nothing to hold on to. How much? He asked. How much is it worth? Somewhere between $40 and $50 million, depending on the market. My accountant could give you a more precise figure. Marcus sat down heavily in one of my guest chairs. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why did you let us think you were ordinary, poor, unremarkable? Yes, because I wanted you to see me for who I am, not what I have. Because I wanted to know if my family loved Harold, or if they only loved what Harold could give them. I paused. I have my answer now. Grandpa, I do love you. I always have. You loved the idea of me. The harmless old man who showed up to dinners and didn't make waves. You loved feeling superior to me. You loved telling yourself that your success was all your own while mine was a cautionary tale of limited ambition. That's not fair, isn't it? Let me tell you something, Marcus. The condo you live in, I bought it 3 years ago through one of my companies. I sold it to you at 40% below market value. The mortgage you've been paying, I hold it personally, and the interest rate I charged you is 1/10 what any bank would have offered. Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The contracts that made your company profitable. Apex Property Services, yes? 15 properties in the GTA. Your biggest deal yet. I arranged those contracts. The property owners are my clients. I asked them, as a personal favor, to consider working with you. No, Marcus said. That's not. I won those contracts. I pitched them. You pitched them to people who had already been told to listen. You competed against other firms who never had a real chance. You won because I made sure you would win. I sat down across from him. The Tesla you loved so much, leased through my company, provided to you as a perk. The investments that always seemed to perform just a little better than average. Managed by my financial advisor, with instructions to ensure your portfolio never suffered significant losses. Marcus was shaking now. I watched his hands tremble against his thighs and felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. Everything, he breathed. Everything I thought I built. Not everything. Your education was your own. Your intelligence is genuine. Your capacity for hard work, when you choose to apply it, is real. I leaned forward. But your success, Marcus? The lifestyle, the status, the confidence that let you stand in your living room and tell your grandfather he was a lesson in limited achievement? That was built on a foundation I gave you, and you never even knew it was there. Why are you telling me this now? Because you stood in front of me in a condo I bought, surrounded by success I engineered, and you called me a failure. Because you let your in-laws talk about me like I was some quaint relic from a simpler time. Because when your wife suggested shipping me off to a retirement community, you didn't say a word in my defense. Grandpa, I loved you enough to give you everything without asking for credit. But I won't be disrespected by someone who owes me everything and recognizes nothing. We sat in silence for a long time. Outside, I could hear birds singing in the maple tree I'd planted when Marcus was born. Inside, I could hear my grandson's worldview collapsing brick by brick. What happens now? He finally asked. Now, you have a choice. The same choice everyone has when they realize the ground beneath them isn't as solid as they thought. What choice? You can blame me. You can tell yourself, I manipulated you, deceived you, set you up to fail. You can nurse your wounded pride and convince yourself you're the victim here. Or you can recognize this for what it is, an opportunity. A chance to find out who Marcus Chen actually is without the scaffolding his grandfather built around him. He looked up. You're really going to take it all away? The condo, the contracts, everything? I'm going to stop artificially supporting a structure that was always meant to be temporary. What you do next is up to you. And if I can't make it on my own, then you'll learn something valuable about yourself. Either way, you'll learn, which is more than you were doing before. I stood up and opened the office door. I think you should go now, Marcus. We both have a lot to think about. He walked to the door, then stopped. Does Mom know about all of this? Your mother knows some of it. She's known for years. I asked her not to tell you. She kept this from me? All this time? She did what I asked. Because she trusted that I knew what I was doing. I paused. I'm not sure I did, but that doesn't make her the villain of this story. Marcus left without another word. I watched his rental car pull away, then went back to my office and began making calls. The unwinding took 3 months. The mortgage was called. Marcus scrambled to refinance, but the numbers didn't work. Not without the sweetheart deal I had given him. He sold the condo at a small loss and moved into a rental apartment in North York. The contracts I had arranged were not renewed. Apex Property Services lost 40% of its revenue in a single quarter. Marcus laid off 2 employees and started doing site visits himself, something he had previously delegated to subordinates. The financial advisor, who had been quietly optimizing his portfolio, informed him that the special arrangement was ending. Marcus's investments were transferred to a standard account and began performing at exactly the market average. I watched all of this from Burlington, through reports from Douglas and updates from Catherine, who was caught painfully in the middle. He's struggling, Catherine told me one evening, a month into the unwinding. He called me yesterday. He sounded scared. Good, I said. Fear is a teacher. Dad, he's your grandson. Don't you feel anything? I feel everything, Catherine. That's why I'm doing this. Because I love him too much to watch him become someone who deserves to be despised. Jennifer left him in February. Not because of the money, exactly. Or maybe exactly because of the money. Marcus told Catherine that Jennifer said she hadn't signed up for a husband who couldn't maintain their lifestyle. She moved back in with her parents in Rosedale and filed for divorce 6 weeks later. I felt sorry for Marcus then. Genuinely sorry. Whatever Jennifer's faults, he had loved her. And learning that her love was conditional on his success must have been devastating. But devastation, like fear, can be a teacher. Spring came. Marcus called me in April, for the first time since our conversation in my office. Grandpa, he said, can we talk? We're talking now. I mean in person. I want to see you. I agreed. I told him to come to Burlington on Saturday. I expected him to show up angry, or self-pitying, or pleading for help. I had prepared responses for all of these. I was not prepared for what actually walked through my door. Marcus looked different, thinner, tired. His clothes were clean but ordinary. No designer labels, no $300 cologne. He looked like a man who had been through something hard and come out the other side changed. Coffee? I offered. Please. We sat at the kitchen table again. Marcus wrapped his hands around his mug and stared into the steam. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said. About what you told me. About everything I didn't know. And I was angry at first. Really angry. At you, at Mom, at the universe, for pulling the rug out from under me. He looked up, but the anger didn't last, because when I was honest with myself, I knew you were right. Right about what? About who I had become. About the way I treated you. About the way I let Jennifer's parents treat you. His voice cracked slightly. You sat in my home, a home you paid for, and listened to people call you a failure. And I said nothing. I said nothing because I believed them. Yes, you did. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I'm so sorry. I had imagined this moment. I had imagined anger and vindication, and perhaps a cold satisfaction at seeing my grandson humbled. Instead, I felt something much simpler. Relief. What have you learned, Marcus? He took a deep breath. That success isn't about what you have. It's about how you treat the people who helped you get there. I had everything, and I was arrogant and ungrateful and blind. Now I have a lot less, and I think I'm becoming someone better. What about Apex? Your company? It's smaller now, a lot smaller, but it's mine, really mine. The clients I have left, I earned them. The work I'm doing it myself. He smiled slightly. I even learned how to fix a leaky faucet last week. The old me would have hired someone. The old you would have called your grandfather a failure for knowing how to fix his own faucets. Yeah, I would have. He met my eyes. I don't want to be that person anymore, Grandpa. I want to be someone you'd be proud of. Not because of what I achieve, but because of who I am. We talked for 3 hours that day about his childhood and his grandmother and the mistakes I had made in trying to protect him from struggle. About the difference between giving someone everything and teaching them to earn what matters. About the long road ahead and the possibility of rebuilding, not just his business, but his character. When he left, he hugged me. Not the perfunctory embrace of family obligation. A real hug. The kind he used to give me when he was a boy, before success and status and the world's seductions convinced him that needing people was weakness. Thank you, he said, for caring enough to do the hard thing. That's what family is for. I watched him drive away in his modest rental car, toward his modest apartment, toward a life that was finally, truly his. 6 months later, I invited the family to Burlington for Thanksgiving. Not Marcus's condo in Toronto. My bungalow, with the kitchen table that seats 6, and the backyard with the maple tree, and the modest rooms that had sheltered 40 years of love and loss and living. Catherine came with David. Patricia flew in from Calgary with Simone, and Marcus came alone, Jennifer being a memory he was learning to let go of. We ate turkey that Catherine overcooked, as usual. We drank wine that cost $8 a bottle. We talked and laughed and remembered Marcus's grandmother, who would have been proud to see her family together, even in this small space, even without the glittering trappings of the success she never cared about. After dinner, Marcus found me on the back porch, looking up at the stars. Grandpa, he said, I want to ask you something. Ask the things you took away, the support you withdrew. Was it revenge? I considered the question. I had considered it many times over the past year. No, I said finally. It wasn't revenge. Revenge is about making someone suffer for what they did. This was about making someone grow from who they were. What's the difference? Revenge looks backward. What I did, I hope, looks forward, toward the man you're becoming, toward the grandfather I wanted to be but didn't know how to be until it was almost too late. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that told me everything I needed to know about whether this hard year had been worth it. I'm grateful, he said. Not for the money you gave me, not for the success you engineered. I'm grateful that when I forgot who I was supposed to be, you loved me enough to remind me. I reached over and put my hand on his shoulder. My grandson, my boy. Still learning, still growing, still becoming. That's what family is for, I said again. And this time, I knew he understood. The night sky stretched above us, vast and indifferent and beautiful. Somewhere in Toronto, towers full of people were chasing success, measuring their worth in square footage and salary, and the brand of car they drove. Somewhere in Rosedale, Jennifer was rebuilding her life with someone whose value was more easily calculated. But here in Burlington, in my modest bungalow with my imperfect family and my overcooked turkey, I had something that couldn't be measured or bought or lost to the changing tides of fortune. I had the knowledge that love, real love, sometimes means letting someone fall, and the wisdom to know that catching them too soon is a kindness that becomes a cruelty, and the patience to wait through anger and confusion and the long, dark night of unwinding for the moment when understanding finally dawns. Marcus would rebuild, not on the foundation I had given him, but on one he would lay with his own hands. It would be harder. It would take longer. There would be failures and setbacks and moments of doubt, but it would be his, truly his. And that, in the end, was the only gift worth giving. I looked at the stars one more time, then turned to go inside, where my family was waiting, where the dishes needed washing, where life in all its complicated, imperfect, beautiful ordinariness was calling me home. Some lessons can only be learned in the losing. Some growth can only happen in the falling. And some love can only be proven by having the strength to let go. I had done the hard thing, and it had led us here, to this porch, under these stars, with this truth settling between us like a benediction. Everything has a source. Every source has the right to stop flowing. But when the source is love, and the stopping is done in love, what flows again afterward is something purer, something stronger, something that can never be taken away because it was never given. It was earned, and that makes all the difference.